My brother tried to poison my 9-year-old son. And the only reason Jasper is alive today is because I switched the mugs before he could take a single sip. That's the story. But let me back up, because you need to understand exactly who these people are, how long this had been building, and why I was sitting in a hospital waiting room watching my sister-in-law get wheeled past me on a stretcher while my son colored a dinosaur purple and hummed to himself like it was just another Sunday. Because it started way before that morning. Conrad Mercer is my older brother, 42 years old. Regional manager at a logistics company. Owns 3 watches that cost more than my car. Laughs too loud at his own jokes and never at anyone else's. The kind of man who grills burgers twice a year and genuinely believes that makes him a chef. He married Margot Jones 6 years ago. The wedding cost more than most people's houses and somehow still felt cheap. Margot is the kind of woman who sits at a dining table like she's presiding over a courtroom. Spine straight. Chin up. Eyes scanning the room for something to criticize. She had a boutique marketing agency. She had strong opinions about parenting, about discipline, about the correct thread count for bed sheets. She had a look, one specific look, that she saved for me. The one that said she'd been sharpening her tongue all morning and couldn't wait to use it. I'm a single mother. I run my own marketing firm. I built it from nothing, in an industry that spent years trying to convince me I didn't belong. I've pitched to boardrooms full of men who assumed I was the assistant. I've negotiated contracts while Jasper had a fever in the next room. I've done all of it alone, and I've done it well. Margot hated that. Not because she wanted what I had, she had plenty. She hated it because she couldn't control it. She couldn't file me into a neat little category and keep me there. And Jasper, my son, my 9-year-old boy in his dinosaur shirt with the fraying collar, Jasper was the same way. Curious, sharp, unbothered. He didn't care about impressing anyone. He just liked science and books and bacon and dinosaurs. And that drove Margot absolutely crazy. So things started small. Little comments at family dinners. Maybe Jasper needs more structure. He seems easily distracted. Conrad laughing when Jasper mispronounced a word and then repeating it louder so the whole table could laugh too. Margot glancing at Jasper's shirt, the one with the fraying collar, twice before she'd even said good morning. I noticed. I always notice. But I told myself it was family. I told myself people weren't always at their best. I gave them grace they had not earned and would not deserve. Then came the birthday cake. Jasper turned 9 in March. Margot insisted on handling the cake. She made a big thing of it. Let me do this, Bianca, please, I want to contribute. Chocolate cake. Jasper's favorite. I told her, as I had told her at least a dozen times before, that Jasper is severely allergic to walnuts. I'd sent emails. I'd shown up to every family gathering with his EpiPen and explained, in plain language, exactly what would happen if he was exposed. Margot always nodded like she understood. The cake had walnuts in it. Jasper took one bite at his own birthday party and his throat started closing. 4 hours in the emergency room. Me holding his hand while doctors worked fast and calm and Jasper looked up at me with these big scared eyes and I just kept telling him he was okay, he was okay, he was going to be okay. He was okay. Thank God for EpiPens. Thank God for fast-acting antihistamines and nurses who don't panic. But I was not okay. I was shaking. I was furious in a way I had never been furious before, cold and clear and completely certain. I called Conrad from the hospital parking lot. He said, he's fine, B. Kids have allergies. It happens. It doesn't just happen, Conrad. It happens when people don't care. He laughed. He actually laughed. You're being paranoid. Maybe. But paranoia kept my son alive. I filed that away. I started keeping notes, dates, times, incidents. I started paying closer attention. Because something had shifted in me that night in the ER. Something that said, these people are not safe. And I was going to prove it. Then there was the science fair. Jasper had been working on his project for weeks. A model of the solar system with working LED lights and a handwritten research paper about gravitational pull. He was so proud. He practiced his presentation in front of the bathroom mirror. He made flashcards. He asked me to quiz him every single night before bed. Mom, what causes gravitational pull? Mom, how far is Jupiter from the sun? Mom, am I ready? He was ready. He was more than ready. Margot's son Archer was also competing. Archer is 11, 2 years older than Jasper. Smart kid, I'll give him that. But Margot didn't just think Archer was smart. Margot had built her entire identity around Archer being exceptional. Every conversation eventually circled back to Archer's grades, Archer's test scores, Archer's future at some prestigious university she'd already mentally enrolled him in. He was going to win that science fair. In her mind, it wasn't even a question. And then Jasper entered. The week before the competition, Jasper started feeling off. Stomach aches, headaches, fatigue. Nothing severe enough to send up immediate alarm bells, but enough to slow him down. I took him to his pediatrician, Dr. Hadley. She ran tests. Everything came back normal. Might just be stress, she said. Big competition coming up. I nodded. But it didn't sit right with me. Jasper wasn't stressed about the competition. He was excited about it. There's a difference, and I know my kid. I know the difference between him being nervous and him being sick. He was sick. Something was making him sick. I just didn't know what yet. Sunday brunch at Conrad's house. The kind with overcooked bacon, undercooked eggs, and zero respect for boundaries. Jasper was at the table, swinging his legs, humming something off-key, completely unbothered by the tension in the room. He was wearing the dinosaur shirt. Margot had already clocked it twice. I was ready for the comment. I was ready for a lot of things that morning, actually. What I wasn't ready for, what genuinely stopped me cold, was Conrad. Conrad walked out of the kitchen carrying a steaming mug. Let me be clear about something. Conrad Mercer has never made coffee for anyone in his life. Not for his wife. Not for his kids. Not for guests. He drinks cold brew from Whole Foods in those recyclable bottles that he leaves all over the house like breadcrumbs to nowhere. He does not grind beans. He does not operate a French press. He does not make special blends. So when he walked toward my son with a steaming mug and a smile I had never seen on his face before, soft, practiced, a little too warm, every single alarm in my body went off at once. Made you a special coffee, buddy. Jasper looked up, confused but curious. Really? I can have coffee? Just a little, Conrad said, ruffling his hair. You're a big guy now, right? I leaned forward slightly, kept my face completely neutral, and I inhaled. Metallic. Sharp. Wrong. Not just coffee. Something underneath the coffee that had no business being there. My pulse spiked, but my smile stayed exactly where it was. Because years of dealing with Margot had taught me how to weaponize pleasantness. You don't let people know what you know until you're ready to use it. How thoughtful, I said. And then, oops. My hand slipped. Just a little bump of the table. Completely accidental. The kind of thing that happens when you're casually reaching for the cream and misjudge the distance. The mug switched. Margot didn't notice. She was scrolling her phone. Conrad was already heading back to the kitchen, whistling. Jasper picked up the mug that was now in front of him, Margot's mug, the one with the delicate floral pattern and the faint lipstick stain on the rim, and looked at me. I reached over and gently took it from his hands. Actually, sweetheart, let's wait until after breakfast. Coffee on an empty stomach isn't great. He shrugged. Okay, just like that. Because he trusts me. Completely and without question. The way kids trust their parents. The way they should be able to. Margot looked up from her phone. Oh, let the boy try it, Bianca. You baby him too much. I smiled. You're probably right. I pulled out my phone. Opened the camera app. Hit record. Angled it just enough to capture the table, the mugs, their faces, the whole scene. I've been collecting evidence for months. I wasn't about to stop now. Margot picked up Jasper's original mug, the one Conrad had so carefully prepared, and started talking. Her usual territory. Discipline. Structure. How children need boundaries. How some parents mistake permissiveness for love. She sipped once. Twice. Conrad checked his watch. I checked my phone, pretending to scroll emails. 3 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Margot's lipstick started smudging slightly. She wiped her mouth, kept talking. 15 minutes. Her hand trembled a little when she reached for her water glass. 20 minutes. She blinked too fast. Her face flushed. 30 minutes. She dropped the mug. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Coffee spread out like a confession. Conrad. Her voice was thin. Stretched. Something's wrong. Conrad froze. He looked at the broken mug. He looked at her. He looked at Jasper, who was on his third piece of bacon, completely unbothered. And then he looked at me. And I saw it, the exact moment it hit him. The realization. The horror. The recognition that the mug she'd been drinking from wasn't hers. His voice cracked. That wasn't. I stepped into the dining room, smoothing my skirt. Wasn't what, Conrad? Silence. Jasper looked up. Is Aunt Margot okay? I'm not sure, sweetheart, I said quietly. But we're going to find out. Margot didn't make it back to her chair gracefully. This wasn't an Instagram-worthy moment. It was the ugly kind of collapse, slow and heavy, knees first, then sideways. She hit the floor with a dull thud. Shallow breathing. Pale skin. Clammy. Eyes unfocused. Conrad knelt beside her, hands shaking. And then he whispered it. Barely audible. But my phone was recording. That wasn't supposed to be hers. Clear as anything. Margot, on the floor, her voice barely working, you said it would just make him sick enough to miss the competition. There it was. The whole thing. In one sentence. Sitting right there in the open like it had been waiting to come out. I dialed 911. Calm. Steady. Like I was ordering food. Yes. Hello. My sister-in-law appears to be having a reaction to something that was intended for my child. The dispatcher paused. Ma'am, can you repeat that? My brother poisoned a drink meant for my 9-year-old son. His wife drank it by mistake. We need an ambulance. Another pause. We're sending someone now. I hung up. Conrad stared at me. His mouth was open. His face had gone the color of old snow. I didn't. Don't say a word. Jasper tugged my sleeve. Mom, what's happening? I knelt down and held his face in both my hands. Aunt Margot is sick, baby. But she's going to be okay. We're going to make sure of it. He nodded. Like when I hit Finn at school and had to sit out recess? Yes, I said. Exactly like that. Except much, much bigger. He accepted that. Kids are remarkable that way. When you give them the truth in doses they can actually hold, they handle it. He leaned back against the couch cushions and unzipped his dinosaur backpack and pulled out a book. And I stood up and waited for the ambulance. The paramedics arrived in 7 minutes. 2 of them. Efficient, calm, the kind of professionals who have seen everything and aren't shaken by any of it. One of them, a woman named Fiona, kind eyes, no-nonsense energy, looked at me while her partner checked Margot's vitals. Do you know what she ingested? I pointed at Conrad. He does. Fiona turned to him. Sir, I need to know exactly what was in that drink. Conrad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't. That's not an answer. What was in the drink? A substance, he finally said. A synthetic compound. I got it from someone I knew in college. He said it would just cause stomach issues. Nausea. Maybe vomiting. Enough to keep a kid home for a day or two. Fiona's expression didn't change. But I watched her jaw tighten. You gave a child an unregulated synthetic compound. It wasn't supposed to hurt him, Conrad said, his voice cracking. Just slow him down. She didn't respond to that. She turned back to Margot. The younger paramedic, Damon, stepped toward Conrad. You're going to need to come with us. Police will want to talk to you. Conrad looked at me. I looked back. No sympathy. No flinching. Just complete and total clarity. Please. I didn't mean. You absolutely did. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and bad decisions. I sat in the waiting room with Jasper, who was now working through a stack of coloring pages a nurse named Frances had printed for him. He hummed while he colored, totally in his own world, filling a T-Rex in with aggressive purple strokes like nothing in the universe could touch him. I sat next to him and I thought about every single moment I had let slide. The walnut cake. The comments about Jasper being dramatic. Margot suddenly being very interested in our family calendar, always asking when Jasper had activities, competitions, events. Conrad's weird new habit of offering Jasper snacks I hadn't packed. It wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. And I had ignored it because they were family. Because I wanted to believe that people wouldn't hurt a child. But they do. All the time. Especially when that child threatens something they care about more than they care about him. Dr. Vera Hartwell came out to find me about an hour later. Silver hair, tight bun, 50-something, with the kind of face that has delivered bad news so many times it's learned how to carry it without showing it. She gestured to a consultation room. I followed her in. Your sister-in-law is stable, she said. But the substance in her bloodstream is concerning. Concerning how? It's synthetic. A designer compound. Highly concentrated. Likely acquired through unregulated channels. She paused. If your son had ingested the amount she did, given his size and his age, the outcome would have been catastrophic. Organ failure. Possibly death. The room tilted a little. I held on to the back of the chair. Are you certain? Completely. Silence. I've contacted the police, she said. Detective Harris is on his way. I exhaled. Good. She looked at me for a moment. You switched the mugs. It wasn't a question. I did. That's the only reason your son is okay. I know. Something shifted in her expression. Not pity. Closer to respect. You're a good mother. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But I didn't. Detective Victor Harris looked like he belonged on a crime show. Sharp suit. Sharper eyes. The kind of tired that comes from spending years watching people do terrible things to each other and still showing up the next morning to deal with it. We sat in the hospital cafeteria. It smelled like burnt coffee. Jasper was still with Nurse Frances. Harris opened his notebook. Walk me through what happened. I did. Every detail. Every incident. The walnut cake. The headaches. The science fair. The mug. The recording. When I finished, he looked up. You have documentation? I opened a folder on my phone that I had been building for months. Medical records. Screenshots of texts. A written log with dates and times. And the video from that morning. He watched it twice. This is premeditated, he said quietly. I know. And you have this backed up? Cloud storage. 3 separate accounts. He almost smiled. You're thorough. I'm a mother. He nodded. And then he got the warrant. They found it in Conrad's home office. A locked drawer in his desk, not hard to open once they had the paperwork. Inside, small pharmaceutical bottles, unlabeled. Handwritten dosage notes in Conrad's looping handwriting. And a spreadsheet. He had made a spreadsheet. Titled, Tolerance Timeline. Text exchanges between Conrad and someone listed in his phone as Dr., later identified as Travis Hackett, a former chemistry student Conrad knew from college. Hackett had dropped out and started selling unregulated compounds online. The messages were the kind of thing that makes you stare at the screen and read it 3 times because your brain doesn't want to accept that a person actually typed these words. Conrad, need something to make a kid sick. Not permanent. Just enough to miss school for a few days. Hackett, how old? Conrad, 9. Hackett, I've got something. Start small. Build tolerance over time so it's not obvious. Conrad, perfect. Weeks of planning. Dosage adjustments. Questions about symptoms. And then, the night before the science fair. Conrad, final dose tomorrow. Make sure he drinks it. Hackett, good luck, man. I sat in the police station reading those transcripts and I felt nothing. No rage, no shock. Just this hollow, absolute certainty. He made a spreadsheet, I said. Mostly to myself. Harris looked up. Excuse me? He made a spreadsheet for poisoning a child. Harris's face was grim. People rationalize anything when they want something badly enough. What did he want? Archer to win a middle school science fair. Your sister-in-law wanted that. Your brother wanted her approval. I let out a sound that wasn't really a laugh. He poisoned my son for approval. People have done worse for less. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecutor was Joanna Stafford. Mid-40s. The energy of a freight train. The precision of someone who has spent her career making sure people don't get away with things. She dismantled Conrad and Margot piece by piece with the kind of calm efficiency that is more devastating than any dramatic courtroom moment. Margot wore soft colors. She cried. She dabbed her eyes. She tried to be sympathetic. The jury watched her and wrote things in their notebooks and didn't look moved. Conrad went with confusion. He didn't understand what he was giving Jasper. Travis told him it was harmless. He never meant for anyone to get hurt. He was sorry. The toxicology report said otherwise. Expert witnesses, doctors, chemists, pediatric specialists testified that the compound found in Margot's system was dangerous at that concentration. That the dosage Conrad had planned for Jasper, based on his own handwritten notes and his own spreadsheet, would have caused severe harm. Possibly death. Jasper sat in the courtroom once, at my request. I wanted the jury to see him. Not as a file number or a case summary. I wanted them to see a 9-year-old boy in a dinosaur shirt who liked science and bedtime stories and bacon and asking questions about gravitational pull. He sat next to me and looked around the room and then looked at Conrad. Mom, Uncle Conrad looks sad. He should be, baby. Is he going to jail? Yes. He made very bad choices. Jasper nodded slowly. Okay. And then he leaned against my arm. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. Guilty. All counts. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Child endangerment. Margot fainted. This time, nobody switched anything. This time, nobody cared. After that, everything fell fast. Conrad lost his job within a week of the arrest. His house went into foreclosure. His marriage ended. Margot filed for divorce from her hospital bed, citing irreconcilable differences, which might be the biggest understatement in the history of legal documents. Her marketing agency collapsed. Clients pulled out when the story hit the news. Turns out attempted child poisoning is not great for your brand. My biggest client, Alderton Financial Group, called me personally. We're doubling your contract, the CFO said. And we'd like you to lead the national campaign. Thank you. You've shown remarkable integrity through all of this. Integrity. Interesting word for didn't let my brother poison my kid. But I took the contract. I filed the restraining order. I enrolled Jasper in therapy, not because he was traumatized, but because I wanted him to have somewhere to put everything. A safe space to process it in his own time, his own way. And I kept going. Because that's what you do. You protect, you survive, you move forward. A few months later, I was invited to speak at the Midwest Entrepreneur Forum. The topic was resilience in competitive markets. I stood on a stage in front of 300 people, business owners, marketers, entrepreneurs, and I told them the truth. Sometimes, I said, your biggest competitor shares your last name. Cautious laughter from the audience. And sometimes, I continued, the most important decision you will ever make is trusting your instincts. Even when everyone around you says you're overreacting. Even when they call you paranoid. I paused. Never let anyone hand your child a special drink. Silence. And then they stood up. I don't think they were applauding my story. I think they were applauding the part of themselves that had ever been told they were being dramatic. The part that had ever doubted something they knew in their gut was true. The part that had stayed calm when everything inside them was screaming. That part deserves to be applauded. That evening I went home and made coffee. Fresh beans from the farmer's market. My kitchen. My grinder. My mug, plain white ceramic, nothing special about it. Just mine. Jasper came in from soccer practice, backpack over one shoulder, still in his cleats. Mom, is it safe? I smiled. Only if I made it. He grinned and grabbed a juice box from the fridge and sat down across from me at the kitchen table. The late afternoon light came through the window. Everything was quiet and warm and completely ordinary. Good day? I asked. Yeah. We won the scrimmage and I got an A on my English essay. That's my boy. He sipped his juice. I sipped my coffee. Safe. Warm. Ours. Because the best revenge isn't a verdict, as satisfying as that was. It's not the contract or the standing ovation or watching someone's life fall apart because of choices they made. The best revenge is this, a regular Tuesday evening. Juice boxes and soccer cleats and homework on the kitchen table. Your kid safe. Your house peaceful. Your enemies exactly where they put themselves. And you, right here, completely unafraid. Thanks for listening, and if this story hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about mothers who trust their instincts, protect their children, and never, not once, let the wrong people win. A mother's instinct is not paranoia. It is the most precise alarm system ever built.